Today we're going to look at ordering decimals. And the good news is that if you've watched my other video on how to compare decimals, ordering decimals should hopefully become a little easier for you. Because really when you're ordering decimals, you're comparing them, only there's more than two that you are comparing. So let's take a look at our first example. And let's say that I have the decimals. Uh, 364 2/10, 430, and then 450. A strategy that you could use in order to order these are to line them up by their place values. Now when you do that, you're really lining up the decimal, because by lining up the decimal, you are in fact lining them up by their place value. It makes it kind of nice and easy. Sometimes people call it stacking them by their decimal. Any way you look at it, once that decimal is lined up, that means all the tenths are on top of each other, all the ones place, tens, hundreds, and so on. Alright, so once I've went ahead and lined up the decimals and all the place values, let's look at the highest value to start. So in this case, it's the whole number side, and it's the hundreds place. And I see two 300s and one 400. So right away, this 400, if I'm ordering it from least to greatest, that'll be at the end. That's the greatest, because 430 would be greater than both of my 300s. So I know that one's the largest, so I'm going to go ahead and move that out of the way. Now let's look at the next place value, the tens, and I see that I've got 5 and 6. So right there, I know which one's the smallest. It's going to be my 350, followed by my 364, and then 430 last. So when I order these, I can put them in order from least to greatest. They don't always have to be least to greatest, but that's typically how you see numbers wanting to be ordered. Another way that you can put some decimals in order would be by filling in any gaps you might have. Okay, so let's look at this example. I've got 4 different numbers, and I need to put them in order from least to greatest. And I'm going to go ahead and line them up by their place value. So when I do that, I'm using that decimal to kind of be my guiding point in order to do that. And now they're lined up by their place value. Now you might notice that 22 in the original number doesn't have a decimal. Boys and girls, don't forget, whole numbers are in fact decimals. The decimal just goes at the end of the whole number. So when looking over all of these numbers, you see that we have some varying sizes in these decimals. And so you can do something that might help yourself, and that's called annexing the zero. I know, ooh, fancy math word. And that's when you simply take those zeros and fill them in. To annex a zero means to add a zero at the end of a number. It just shows equivalency, doesn't necessarily change the value. Excuse me, when you're dealing with decimals. Whole numbers, if you start adding a bunch of zeros, it would of course change the value. But with decimals, you're just kind of holding that place value. So again, when we compare, looking for the smallest, since we're going least to greatest, I'm going to start at the largest value, which is my whole number 10 side. And I notice they're all 2s. Alright, that didn't get me very far. So let's move over to the ones place. And I see that I've got 2 that are 2s. So I'm going to focus on these 2 numbers until I figure out which is the smallest. So now let's move over in the tenths. And there you go. I see that I have 6 tenths and 0. So what that tells me mathematically is 22 is my smallest. 22 and 65 hundredths would be my next. So I don't need to look at the rest of the digits. I already know which is smaller between the two. So let's go back to the two whole numbers that were 23 and look at their tenths place. So here I've got an 8 tenths and 2 tenths. 2 is smaller than 8, so that tells me that this is the next smallest number, and this would be the largest, our last number, if we were going least to greatest. Alright, boys and girls, now it's your chance to give it a try, so grab a paper and pencil. We're going to put these 4 numbers in order from least to greatest. You can stack the decimals if you find that to be helpful. Pause the video now. Alright, so hopefully you have all of your decimals lined up in front of you, and starting at the greatest value, which is the tens. You saw that we had 2 that were 50s, so then I had to look to the next place value, and we saw that the 6 was smaller than the 59, so that put my 50s in order. Then when I moved into my 60s, the 4s were the same as well, so that brought me to the tenths place, and I saw that 64 and 3 tenths was smaller than 64 and 5 tenths. Hope you got the same answer. Great job, guys.